Friends. You're listening to what came from the radio with Mark Torres. As you know, I'm Dr. Felder, and today we have a special interview with author, radio, TV personality, stand-up comedian Dick Dick Wybrow. What a name! What a name! Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I thought I would be speaking with Jen today.
Well, well, we all think all types of things in this world, and a lot of times we get something different. So, that's how the cookie crumbles, right? Although I'm
No,
gluten
it's
free and keto, so no cookies really.
no, totally fine. Yeah, I mean, is Jen okay? Do you have her locked in a room, or is she available?
A lot of interest about this Jen character. You know what? I haven't really spoken to her in days or weeks. I don't really care about that one, but let's focus on you. You're a special man. Now, our listeners might not know about you. Maybe they don't listen to the radio. Maybe they're living under a rock. Maybe they don't know anything about New Zealand because you're in New Zealand now, even though you're born in Canada. I mean, this man's all over the world. So, would you be so kind to enlighten our listeners with a short summary of what you've done and do?
My career has been avoiding real work. So I've been a stand-up comedian, radio personality. I've been in television, and now I write books for a living. All of it basically humor based, or at least I believe is humor. Humor is a hard thing to say you do. Anybody can say, like, for writing, anybody can say I'm a horror writer because you know the elements. I'm a romance writer. But when you say humor writer, you kind of have to prove yourself. You can't just I'm a humor writer and then people go, okay, great. You've got to be funny. So far it seems
Hmm.
to be working. I've fooled people enough to think I'm actually a humor writer.
Right, right. Well, you're definitely quick. You're definitely witty. You got that going for you. Now, stalking you a little on the internet last night and today with a stomach full of Indian food. And you mentioned that writing supernatural comedy in so many words like gives you more comedic freedom, more room to spread your wings, shall I say. Now, we're in a world full of cancer culture, censorship, increased limitations, a lot of sex and a lot of other sex. They're going crazier than ever, but we're in a you can't say that type of world for the most part, mainstream. Now, how does writing supernatural comedy give you more room?
It just provides sort of a vehicle to be able to kind of do whatever I want because, like you mentioned, the sex side of it. I don't put sex in my books. There was a great bit of advice I got years ago: write what you know. And so I don't write sex at all. There's no
I'm
sex in my books.
sorry.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is what it is. But so there, supernatural and fantasy and science fiction, those sort of realms give you sort of a bit of a vehicle to kind of anything goes. As long as you stay within certain parameters, you can create situations and moments, just kind of fun moments between two characters that allow yourself to just explore and be funny. It's freedom to just bend the world to your will. And that's the fun part of creating these worlds. I can create a world from my mind and then sort of insert these characters that just come up with funny things to say.
Oh, you mentioned sex. Just wondering, do you think that our culture is a little too focused on sex, or maybe we need more sex? Just wondering what you're thinking of sex and TV and movies and songs. It seems to be everywhere nowadays. I'm quite bombarded by it, and personally, I'm actually celibate for over 15 months. I have
I've
no
been a
sex.
bit, yeah, no, I think that when it comes to sex, a lot of it is our interest in trying to work out relationships, like how is that working for them? What is it about these two people coming together, breaking through that barrier in a variety of different ways, depending on how you do it, but breaking through that barrier and like maybe it's our interest is we haven't all worked it out ourselves and so these people
Hmm.
put this up on TV or in novels or whatever it might be. Maybe they've worked it out. Maybe that's where our
Hmm.
interest is. It could
Hmm.
be. It could be we're trying to figure out if anybody else has worked it out yet. And the truth is, none of us have really worked it out. We're all really screwed up in our own various ways.
Right, right. I wonder if humans have gotten rid of like body odor, because body odor is a part of the sexual. You got armpits in your face, and I don't know. At least that happened to me a lot of armpits in my face, and that's why I kind of quit, actually. But anyway, back to you. Now you're a seasoned performer, stand up radio, TV. Now, what have you found to be some of the benefits and problems with each format? Now, each one gives you a little bit of freedom, some take us away. Just wonder what your experience were. Ah, man, I can't stand that about stand up, but I love this about radio, or I can't stand this about TV. But what are your thoughts?
All of them present in a different way. Stand-up comedy, it's me talking to a group of people on a stage. And there is something about stand-up comedy when you're doing stand-up that you got to be hitting a joke every 15, 20 seconds or so. Some people even faster than that. With radio, it's a different experience because you're speaking one-on-one. This isn't the 1950s. We're all sitting around an old Philco radio. You're talking directly to one person. And that's why I love radio and podcasting, because if you're listening right now, you're not listening to the group of people. Nobody does that. You're listening to this podcast right now, or you're listening to the radio right now, as you're maybe washing the dishes or doing the lawn or driving down the road, whatever it might be. And so radio is a real personal one-on-one experience for that. When it comes to television novels, television is a little bit more like stand-up. You're kind of presenting to a crowd. And with novels, it's one-on-one, but in a longer form. And so you're building a relationship with these characters. So you're speaking to the individual, the reader, but through characters. So each is different in how that style is. And so it's a real trick. It's not just about being funny or a good storyteller. Each medium has a way to present that material in a way that's interesting or fascinating, or something to create a bit of an escape for somebody who's enjoying it.
Right. Right. I definitely personally I escape into movies or TV. Stand up doesn't really let me escape. I have to kind of be here in the moment and it's kind of a group thing. And I'm really big into escapism and eating a lot. So for
Yeah,
me, I can't put on stand up because I'm not going to be able to fade into the background. It's not a drug for me. But we're going to get into well, maybe something you've taken drugs for, and maybe it's why you have all the energy you do as being a narcoleptic. Because I've done
that's
some
right.
homework on you and you have narcolepsy, maybe that's why you have so much energy because 'cause you're always sleeping? I was just wondering, now this is the I thought it was the condition where you get spontaneous erections, but I was misread. Now, what how does not having narcolepsy affect your life for better or for worse?
So narcolepsy, for people that don't know, narcolepsy just means you're sleepy all the time. And like right now, as I'm speaking to you, not Jen, Dr. Feldy, as I'm speaking with you, I have to focus directly right now. And when you and I hang
Mm,
this call up, I'm going to sit in this chair and just melt. I'm putting all my energy into this moment right now. And I've learned how to do that over the years because I am tired all the time. But I tell you what, narcolepsy to me, I don't see it as a negative. When I first got diagnosed with this, like in my late 20s, early 30s, I was like, this is why I'm so tired all the time. Why do I have this? But then I started to realize that with narcolepsy, I see it as a creative superpower. I really do. Because, and I give this is an example I like to give people. When you're lying down going to sleep, you're just about to fall asleep and you get all those amazing ideas, oh, that's really incredible. I should write that down. I'll remember that in the morning. Then you wake up the next morning and you don't remember it and you didn't write it down. But that sort of creative zone that you feel when you're falling asleep and all those amazing ideas come in, I'm there about 85% of my day. And I think that is this font of creativity for me, where I can write these stories and come up with these ideas, these strange things without all these governors we put on ourselves and say, no, don't do that. That's too weird. I embrace that weird. Let's go all in weird. Let's sniff some armpits. Let's do this.
very
Let's
interesting.
have this happen.
Now, if you can spontaneously fall asleep, I guess you can fall apart too. And you're not
Yeah,
Humpty Dumpty. I got you mixed up with my previous guest. I actually just interviewed Humpty Dumpty. Would you believe it or not? But
that's
anyway,
amazing.
uh, so do you have to structure your days very specifically with timings or drugs or foods or supplements or mindsets to make sure you don't fall asleep? Like, okay, where this interview is going to be done at 4:52, no later than that. Do you have to know that ahead of time?
There's a little bit of that, and I would like to present myself, as we all like to, as a person who has this all worked out and has it all planned and eat the right foods. I've done all the research and everything. I've looked into all the foods I should be eating and the sleep times and the nap times I should be taking, all that. But I really don't do that very well. One of the most empowering things I have done, and it took me a long time to get to this point, is I just tell people. I just let people know ahead of time. I didn't say anything. I worked at CNN for about 10 years. Nobody there knew that I was a narcoleptic. But then years later, at my next gig, I was like, here's the thing, I get tired a lot. And so there may be times when you're speaking that I'm staring and I'm not really there. That isn't about you, that's about me. But I did find that even though it was I felt kind of ashamed for a great length of time, I did find letting people into my world, opening myself up and telling people this is what I'm going through, that for the most part, other people are quite understanding and fascinated by it.
Mhm.
And so,
Right.
sort of bringing them into my experience has really helped me deal with this.
Right, and that's true for a lot of different things in life, whether it's shame or maybe you're having an affair. And I would never have an affair, but if you tell someone, it decreases the shame, and maybe they can work with you. And I gotta say, you just gave me an idea. If I have some very boring people, I have some very boring patients. I go on and on. Dr. Feldy, my elbow, my wrist, my ankle, my penis, whatever. eh, I could just start telling them I got narcolepsy, a little white lie, a
Yep.
little psychological lie, and then
Why
they
not?
won't get offended because some people are like, "Hello, Dr. Feldy, I'm talking to you," and I just can't help but just roll my eyes and fall asleep. But I guess the rolling the eyes part isn't part of it, but maybe I can work that into something else. I don't know.
You can.
Well,
People don't
yeah,
know, but people don't know about narcolepsy. They've heard about it maybe a little bit. You can add all sorts of stuff in there. You can tell. There's times with narcolepsy where I just get up and walk out of the room. It's not my fault. It's not your problem. It just I get walk out of the room and get a sandwich. So it's not me. It's not you. It's the
I
narcolepsy. So I would say embrace it.
I'm gonna try that. I'm going to Governor's. Governor's a big comedy club on Friday as a guest. And I don't know. This host might be putting my sleep, so I might just tell him I have narcolepsy ahead of time. And if I want to take a nap on the table, then we'll do it. Now,
There is power in
uh,
sympathy.
oh, that is true. Very nice, nicely said. There's power in sympathy. I like that. Put on a t-shirt, a mug, or maybe get it tattooed on my butt. But
Mhm.
anyway, I think that for me, the funniest content I've ever made, have ever experienced, is produced unintentionally. And usually as part of serious movies or serious situations or something you shouldn't be laughing at. Now, it's not never stand up. I almost never really laugh at stand up. Sometimes there's one guy, John Ziegler. He gets me going. I can't stop giggling. I also took an edible before it was said. But anyway, now
That
funny
helps.
to me is when natural things go wrong from real interactions. And it's real hard to laugh at the scripted content. Very rare. Now, you texted me, quote, TV wise, wait, let's do an impersonation of Dick Wybrow.
Okay.
TV wise, I find the funny shows can't are not often comedies. As someone a bit more experienced than me, oh, that's not it. You texted me. I find the funny shows are often not comedies. End quote. So, so as someone a bit more experienced than me, perhaps. Why do you think funny is often found outside the world of comedy?
Well, first off, I'll say I feel like I'm talking to myself. That impression was so. It's like I'm just speaking to me.
I tried.
But it was very good. I
Thank you.
just, I took a look at like Rotten Tomatoes. I'm actually looking at some of the top, according to Rotten Tomatoes, the best comedy TV shows of May 2024. Number one is Baby Reindeer. I don't know if you've seen that.
Parts
And
of
then
it.
there's Baby Reindeer, Bodkin, Gen V, The
Hmm,
Boys.
hmm.
So there's all these shows right now considered the best comedies of 2024 of this particular month. And they're not necessarily comedies. I think that right now there's less of that situation comedy, the old Seinfeld years, or All in the Family, if you want to go all the way back, or Family Ties in the 80s, that sort of thing. I think we find humor in moments like the new Fallout show, which is really amazing. And I'm not even a huge sci-fi guy necessarily, or a video games person, but there are funny moments in Fallout. There's a moment where the guy turns and says, "Hey, listen, take me off to this other place," and he's dying. And she goes, "How am I going to drag your body through the desert?" And he goes, "Take my head." and and it's just those little moments, the surprising moments, in shows that aren't necessarily like branded as comedy, that are amazingly funny because they kind of come out of nowhere. And I think some of the best comedy is that stuff that catches you off guard. So some of the funniest stuff, the funniest moments we're seeing in TV and movies aren't necessarily from shows that are dictated as being funny shows or movies. They're just everyday dramas or thrillers or even horrors that have moments of comedy that come out of left field and kind of hit you over the head.
Well, speaking of comedy, in another interview, because I've been doing my stalking on you, I would love to see a movie or a cartoon version, preferably a movie with real actors and real wolves and real dogs, about the story you created about there's a werewolf and usually there's a full moon, but you have all this stuff going on about half moons and crescent moons. Could you tell us about that? I thought that was so witty and so fun.
So this was, and I wish I could tell you, and this, I think all this stemmed from narcolepsy. So the book series I'm writing right now, I'm just finishing up the fifth in the series. I've written these over about 18 months. And basically it's about the main character's name is Kane. He's a 6'7" French Canadian. But a year ago, he was a wolf. And what happened was he got bit by a man, this wolf, and he turned into a human. So kind of a reverse sort of werewolf idea. And so the fun part of it is when Kane, this 6'7" French Canadian who used to be a wolf, when the full moon comes out, he turns into the standard werewolf. But I, as a creator, as a writer, I was being selfish, I think, in some ways. So I was thinking, I don't want to wait the 28, 29 days, whatever it is, for the full moon to come out, and then I can have fun with it. What about, why is it just the full moon that affects werewolves, right? What about a half moon or a crescent moon, as you were saying? What
Right.
would he turn into then? And so those are lesser phases of a moon. So I thought a lesser phase of a wolf or a werewolf, that's a dog. So what happens is, if it's a half moon, he turns into this type of dog. If it's a quarter moon, he turns into this kind of dog. And that's sort of been the fun for me. I sort of, you enjoy reading something that somebody enjoys writing. And so I found that joy in creating this, and people seem to like it. And it gives me an opportunity too. You talked about stand up. A lot of stand up, the best stand up I find is sort of observing the human condition. And so I think the people that really are enjoying Kane, and it seems to be something that's resonating with people, is when this man who was a wolf just last year sort of is looking at humans through this animal lens, like what the strange stuff they do and the unusual choices they make. So it's his observation on the human condition that makes it funny.
Now, you seem very motivated, at least through a few decades. It seems like you've been very busy with the TV, the radio, the books, the stand-up comedy, and it seems like you have a strong self-belief in knowing you can do something because you obviously have taken things on and someone's either told you you can do it, and they've pushed behind you like a steamroller and pushed you into all these things, or perhaps it's from more internal and you thought you can do this. Now, where does all this self-belief and knowing that you can do it come from? Do you have encouraging parents or proving anyone wrong? I was just talking about that. Is there some people that you're like, I'm gonna prove Salad Jess and Joe wrong? How did they get like this?
I think the word I'm looking for when I talk about knowing that I can do this is delusion. I've convinced myself that I can pull this off. I tell you what, there's such great power.
You have.
There's amazing thing that Carrie Fisher said many years ago, a brilliant creator, obviously. And she said, she talked about all these other people don't know you can't do it. So if you come in swinging, thinking I could, showing off, saying I can do this, fake it till you make it, you'll find that more times, often than not, you can't. It's funny
Mhm.
about this idea, like you mentioned, the confidence you might have. If I'm moving into a space, like when I first started writing Kane, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know it wasn't the first book I ever wrote, but it's nuts. It's a nuts kind of story. But so I came into it with all the fake confidence in the world, the deluded confidence in the world, and then people read that and they go, "Well, this guy knows what he's doing," because they
Ah,
sort of, it's funny. It feeds itself. So if you're about to do something you don't have confidence in, you're about to get up and speak to a bunch of people, whatever it might be. If you fake your confidence, people then get confident in you, which feeds your confidence. So it's this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. So
very
you
true.
come in with the total delusion that you can do something, and you really believe that to pull this thing off, you'll find you get a lot of power and energy from people that are buying into it, and that can power your own confidence.
Very true. My first day doing surgeries, I wasn't even licensed yet. I didn't even have any
Right,
of my schooling with me, I didn't even start medical school yet. In fact, well, that's up for debate, but that's true. I had a lot of confidence and I
right,
did a lot of liposuctions, a lot of procedures. Did they go
right.
well? No, but I sure had confidence and I got
I,
more
I don't
clients.
I don't know 100% if it applies to things like surgery or maybe skydiving. Maybe going in, you might want to have some of some of that technical prowess, but for something as frivolous as what I do for a living, stand-up comedy or humor or that sort of thing, it works. It's worked. I've done 4 different careers. I
Wow,
pulled
it's
off
amazing.
4 different careers and, with stand-up and television and radio and being an author, and a lot of it is coming in and just kinda pretending I know what I'm doing, and then, like I say, just kinda getting that energy back from people, and I have amazing, amazing people around me, and those negative people, like you mentioned, because I got plenty when you put yourself out there, you get plenty of haters out there, and I actually use
I
that as fuel.
practice.
Yeah, I use it as fuel. I go, that's kindling on my fire because I think I don't want them to be proved right. So I take in that negativity, I throw that onto my fire and say, "Oh yeah, let me show you," and I make it work. If nothing else, I use all that negativity as power for me.
And I'm sure that that fuel has worked because you've obviously been successful. And then with success comes more success and more confidence. And then you have more haters. And then you say to those haters, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then you do it again. It's like a whole cycle. And the opposite can occur, of course. Now, we're going to have to wrap up this interview because Mark Torres, the main producer of the show, is going to kill me if I go over time. So
All
I'm
right.
going to, yeah, I mean, I'm a doctor. He's the producer. I don't really know time. And, health doesn't really have time. So could you tell our listeners where to find you, your website, social media, anything you want them to know, put it out there so our listeners can find you or not
Oh,
find you.
you can just take a look. You can Google Dick Wybrow. I would suggest if you Google Dick Wybrow that you put that in quotes so it's the entire thing. Because if you just Google Dick Wybrow, you might get some results you don't necessarily want. But you can find me on Facebook. I'm pretty active on Facebook, and I love chatting with anybody. So feel free. Go to my website. Go to my Facebook page. I'm old, so Facebook is where I'm at. Well, I've got TikTok and
Beautiful.
Instagram and all that, but I have more fun on Facebook. So join me over there.
Beautiful. And any final thoughts for our listeners? Anything that's on your heart today you'd like to speak out?
Yeah, I'd like to know what happened to Jen. Is she okay? Is she all right? Because I am worried. I am concerned.
I
Would
wish I
she somebody
knew.
you conducted surgery on at some point? That early
No, no, not
surgery?
her. She doesn't have the money to cough up.
Oh, okay.
She's cheap. She's cheap. She's a real
That's
cheap
really
one, and she's not
that's really
getting
what
anything, Botox lips, I'm not giving her nothing. So
I
anyway, I
understand.
guess that's, been a wrap, and thank you listeners for listening to Came From the Radio. Hope you enjoyed. Now back to the studio